In just a moment, we will be starting our play entitled For Whose Eyes Only, a play in 3 acts. But before we do, I want to point out some things that you found on your chair. In addition to the handouts, there are some handy manuals there. And these two are kind of like a reporter's Bible. I use these all the time. They are wonderful. This information is all online as well at the Attorney General's website and at the IDOG website, www.openidaho.org. But it's so handy to just look it up in the books. This is the Idaho Public Records Law Manual. This is the Idaho Open Meeting Law Manual. And there's Q&A in there. There's the law. There's a lot of things that you'll find very helpful. Now, this is another handout from Attorney General Wasden, the Ethics Manual. We are not covering that tonight, but it's also a good one to have.
We're full service. We're full service.
So before we start our play, we would like to ask for your help in getting us all out of here on time, and this has to do with questions. We will answer all your questions before we leave tonight, but to keep us on schedule, we'd like to take no more than 2 questions at the end of each skit. We've done this presentation, several times now, and we have found that Brian Keene will answer most of your questions during his presentation, and then he'll take any remaining questions at the conclusion of each of his presentations. And I should add that after our skits, Brian will give you a PowerPoint presentation, first about the open meeting law during the first portion of the evening, and then about the public records law in the second portion of the evening, and a copy of both of those are in your handouts. So Brian promises to answer all your questions by the end of the evening, but does not promise that you will like all the answers. I'm ready to call up the actors now for our first scene. Act 1, Scene 1. One reporter tonight, we have Chris Sokol, Executive Director of the Latah County Library System. Come on up. And portraying Trusty the City Clerk, Shannon Quinn, Daily News Education Reporter. So our first scene happens in the hallway outside the City Council chambers. Mayor Luther Burbank and the Watertown City Council are in the chambers meeting with City Attorney Abe Lincoln. These two are outside the chambers. The council has convened an executive session behind closed doors to consider Litigious Lyle's offer to settle a lawsuit. Litigious Lyle is the guy who freaked out when a city snowplow leveled his rose bushes and tragically crushed Pookie the Pomeranian. Krusty the reporter finds Trusty the city clerk in the hall outside the meeting.
They still in there talking about Lyle's lawsuit?
Hi, Krusty. Yep, the city council is still meeting. No, you can't go in there.
I don't know about these closed meetings, Trusty. Seems illegal to me.
Oh, come on, Krusty. You know just as well as I do that the open meeting law allows executive sessions to communicate with the city attorney about pending litigation. It says right on the agenda that they are talking about Lyle's lawsuit.
Maybe, but it just doesn't seem right. They're in there spending the public's money. The public ought to know how they're spending it and how much they're spending.
Right, Krusty. You're the taxpayer's best friend. It would be a great help for the Watertown Daily Splash to print that Abe Lincoln said we should settle for $50,000 to $75,000. That way, Litigious Lyle could learn that the city is ready to pay $25,000 more than he would have eagerly grabbed. The public has a right to know, but not if it hurts the government's ability to negotiate with hostile litigants. If and when there's a settlement, you'll be the first to know.
Okay. Buy your pop?
Woohoo! Well done, well done. Circumstances under which a body can go into executive session. And it requires that proper notice be given on the agenda before going into executive session. And for all public agencies except 2, the only permitted purposes for going into executive session are 1, to consider hiring a specific person, but not to discuss general staffing or budgetary needs. 2, to consider personnel evaluation, dismissal, or discipline. 3, to deliberate concerning labor negotiations or purchase of real property. 4, to consider records that are exempt from disclosure. 5, to consider preliminary negotiations in matters of trade or commerce in which the body is competing with governing bodies and other states or countries. And 6, to communicate with legal counsel or the public agency to discuss the legal ramifications of and legal options for pending litigation or controversies not yet being litigated but imminently likely to be litigated. The mere presence of legal counsel in that executive session does not satisfy that requirement. Any other discussion in executive session is prohibited. Additionally, Idaho Code Section 672345, subsection 3 states that the exceptions to the general policy of open meetings are to be narrowly construed. That same section makes it a violation of the open meeting law to change the subject within the executive session to one that is not identified in the notice of the agenda, or to any topic which is not allowable to be discussed in an executive session. The 2 agencies with additional authorization for closed meetings are the Parole Commission and the Sexual Offender Classification Board, but there are very limited exceptions and they're spelled out in statute. So let's turn to the next one. That's it.
Well, I once walked right into a closed executive session of the Idaho State Land Board. I didn't mean to do it. I didn't realize that they were in executive session. They had been meeting for several hours and I'd showed up late and I thought they were still in open session. So I just opened the door, walked in, sat down, got out my notebook, looked up at them, and Governor Batt was just glaring at me. And I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? And he said, "Madam, we are in executive session." And I said, "Oh!" So I immediately grabbed my notebook and my bag, and I got out of there. I knew I wasn't supposed to be in there yet, and I also knew that they can't take any action during an executive session. The law doesn't allow it. If they're going to do anything, it'll be when they reconvene in open session, and I need, if I want to catch that as a reporter, to wait outside the door, and when that door opens and they're back in open session, I'll come in and find out if there's any action taking place. Now, the worst thing about this story is this was some years ago, as you can surmise, since it was Governor Batt. Well, this year I did it again. I didn't mean to.
It was a great opportunity to really harass her. You know, you don't get that chance very often.
And so Attorney General Wasden and Governor Otter also had the pleasure of booting me out of a closed executive session where I didn't mean to be in the first place. We are on to Act 1, Scene 2, The Law Has Teeth. And I would like to call up our actors for this scene. Portraying Lucky the Reporter is City Councilman Walter Scoop Steve.
Nathan, I need your pencil, I'm a reporter.
There you go, fella.
The server, the
Sure,
restaurant
too.
server, will be Lee Rosen. County Commission Chairman Craig will be portrayed by County Prosecutor Bill Thompson. Commissioner number 2, Ed, will be portrayed by Latah County Library Board Trustee Nancy Sprague. Excuse me. And Commissioner number 3 will be portrayed by Linda Pike, also of the Library Board. Now in this scene, we meet Lucky the Reporter. Lucky, please wave at the audience. Lucky just started working for the Daily Splash last week, and this is his lucky day. He stopped into the local cafe for a bite of breakfast and gets seated next to the 3 county commissioners. Unaware that Lucky is a reporter, they are busy handling the county's business.
Morning, honey. What do you want for breakfast?
Well, good morning. How about a couple of eggs over easy, some extra crisp bacon, hash browns, also extra crisp, sourdough toast, and orange juice, please.
Don't you want your specials?
I do not, I'm very
We
happy.
don't have any.
So, before we get down to business, did you hear what that city council guy, what's his name, Walter Studd was doing? I can't believe it. I'll talk to you about it later. Anyway, so back to business. We're gonna. Gotcha. So we're gonna pave the county line road up to Maple before the first frost, right? You two okay with that?
Well, I can go along if we can take it another half mile past Maple. That'll get some nice pavement in front of my brother-in-law's place.
I don't know, Ed. You know, the budget's pretty tight. I really think we need to stop at Maple.
Come on, Craig, work with me on this. I think I can help with the zoning problem on the nuclear power plant down by the wildlife sanctuary. Nobody needs to know your dad is behind it.
Look, fellas, I'm fine with paving County Line Road, and it really doesn't matter to me if we stop at Maple or go all the way to Elm. But I don't want us to get in the middle of this power plant issue. We need to stay out of it and let the Planning and Zoning Commission do its job. What I am interested in, though, is what we're going to do about the county prosecutor. I think he's getting a little big for his britches. Maybe he could get a little smarter if we cut $50,000 out of his budget. We could say we had to make the cut to cover paving County Line down to Elm.
Yeah, he is kind of, you know, big for his britches sometimes, I guess. Okay, good. So, where are we gonna build that jail? Is Raylene willing to sell? How much does she want?
Okay, hold it. I'm gonna call a penalty, throwing the flag, illegal procedure. Thank you very much for your presentation. Well done.